Hi, team. Welcome back to another edition of the Phil Shomo Coaching Podcast. I am so glad that you joined me today, and I could not be more excited for what we're getting done in this podcast. I mean, some of the recent guests just been amazing, and what a wild experience I had in being able to interview Rick Sessinghaus, who is Colin Morikawa's long-term coach, and getting to know Rick a little bit. And then right on the back end of that interview, we all got to enjoy Colin winning his first major championship in professional golf at the PGA Championship at Harding Park out in San Francisco. What an amazing performance, and the chance I had to have just explored the training that Rick had done with Colin over all the last really last 15, 16 years of Colin's journey, and then see that play out on the biggest stage was just so cool. So cool. I'm equally excited about today's interview. Today, I get the chance to show you guys a recent conversation I had with RYAN HYBL. RYAN is the head golf coach of the Oklahoma Sooners at the University of Oklahoma. RYAN's program at Oklahoma is not only national champions within the last few years, but just a perennial top 5, top 2. And they're just an amazing program. As he explains, he's still developing that program as from its core, but it's really interesting to hear him talk about how he's doing that. And especially, I want you to pay special attention to Ryan gets really open about his own journey with golf as an elite junior golfer, how that played out in college, and then how that kind of hit a massive bump in the road with what he calls some pitfalls that happened on the back end of his college playing career, and how that's motivated his own coaching of younger players to try to avoid some of those stumbles and pitfalls that he had himself. I just got so much out of this interview. We talk a good bit about Ryan's background, but he is starting his 12th season at Oklahoma right now, and may have as good a team this coming year as he has ever had. But of course, he'll be cautious about saying that on the front end, but they really are. They're just loaded, loaded, loaded. I am so pumped for you to hear this interview. I got a ton out of talking with Ryan. I'm so blessed that he would take the time to talk to me. So let's enjoy this interview with Coach RYAN HYBL. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Phil Shomo Coaching Podcast. It is a blast to sit down again with a guy that I've been really looking forward to talking to. I'm blessed today to have Coach RYAN HYBL, head coach of Oklahoma Sooner Golf. Ryan, great to have you today, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Phil. This is going to be a great treat for me, too.
So we were just chatting a little bit before we started recording that Ryan grew up in South Georgia, but somehow or other, he became a huge Fighting Irish fan. Ryan, I grew up in central Indiana, and I watched Notre Dame. I was a marginal Notre Dame fan, but I followed closely all that era. So when I say Lou Holtz to you, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Winning. I think about Rocket Ismail. He was my favorite Notre Dame player at the time. I felt like I was going to be that guy. I think of the gold hat gears. It brings chills down my spine just thinking about Notre Dame football and how I grew up thinking about it. I mean, I'm a kid from South Georgia, right? I was probably actually more a Florida State fan than I was a University of Georgia fan. Florida State and Notre Dame, those were my teams. Bobby Bowden, along with Lou Holtz, just phenomenal stuff. So, I love the Irish. When they came to Norman, and I want to say 2012, I was just giddy as can be, up sitting in the stands watching those, the Fighting Irish come out with those gold hat gears. It was something special.
That's cool. I mean, Rocket Ismail would be a name very clear in my head. I was thinking about it, thinking about Notre Dame back in those days, and I had names popping into my head like Tim Brown, Tony Rice, Jerome Bettis. Obviously, we go a little deeper into like Chris Zorich, Aaron Taylor. And we like start getting into the deeper cuts. But man, classic era of Notre Dame football in the Lou Holtz days for sure. So Ryan, I will have told everybody a little bit about you before we jump on here, but your success path has been not only impressive, but just also something that adds to my own curiosity and wanting to talk to you. So, I think you just finished your 11th season as head coach at Oklahoma. You took over a program I think ranked about 100th when you got there, 10th in the Big 12, I think, the year before. And you've had the four best scoring seasons in school history, 8 years to the NCAA championships. Only you and Illinois and Texas are in that category right now. 2017 national championship, and congrats on that. Only, I think, the second in school history. And just all kinds of Big 12 titles. I mean, Coach of the Year, 8 All-Americans. You had Abraham Answer in your program. Hey, how about that President's Cup stuff with Abraham Answer last year? I mean, he came out of that with like on kind of a rocket ship, like forward. I mean, I know he's 21 in the world now, but what was it like watching one of your former guys not only be such a focal point of that international team, but then the whole thing with him and Tiger playing out in the one-on-one play and all that? I had to be wild.
It was so much fun for me though, just as a fan. Obviously coaching Abe for 3 years like I did, you really sucked up into your guys like that. But the President's Cup, this was Abe's first really big moment on the international stage. Becoming kind of the darling of the international team. And the media had blown a comment that he had made down in Mexico
Yeah.
kind of out of proportion, because he basically was saying, Tiger Woods is my idol, and of course I would love to be able to play against him. Well, then it blew up, right?
Yeah. Like he was calling him out or
Yeah,
something.
that Abe's calling him out, and then Tiger kind of ran with that too, because he loves that. He loves having,
That, sure.
no different than when you watch the Last Dance with Michael Jordan. He loved having that little bit of chip on his shoulder, right, against this guy that thinks he's going to knock him off. Well, Abe did a phenomenal job all week long. He played big time golf.
Unreal.
And honestly, he played very, very good against Tiger. Tiger he beat him. And it's funny. We did a Zoom meeting here recently with Abe and a bunch of our supporters. We talked about that at length, and it's just fun getting his perspective. And he told me, he said, I've never been any more nervous in my life the entire day, the leading up process. You're already going to be nervous playing Tiger, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
playing him in the President's Cup when it means this much. And oh, by the way, Tiger thinks that that you've already called him out, right? This is as good as it gets. So yeah, he had a great time, great moment. It's really, really phenomenal what he's been able to do the last couple of years in particular. He's just turned into a world-class player. I mean, he's top 25 player in the world right now.
It's crazy, yeah. I've been following him for a little while, but I became a big fan after that President's Cup. I've been tracking him close just from that, and even not even connected with talking with you. Just he just won a lot of people over, I think, and I actually felt kind of bad for him. I knew the comment was a compliment. He was giving Tiger the ultimate compliment, and it got twisted on him, and kind of felt bad for that. But I don't think it's reflected poorly on him. I think he's got a lot of fans enjoying his ride right now. So
There's no doubt. And he's such a good person at heart. There's a reason why it hasn't followed him like some of these other guys on the PGA Tour where things follow them. It hasn't followed him because everybody loves Abe,
yeah,
and they kind of understood, I think, what mess he got into with the media. Um, he's just a really, really good person deep down.
so cool, so cool. And we might come back to that a little bit. I want to talk about pressure situations and that kind of environment. And it's fun that you had interactions with him about just even what he felt and all of that and how that relates to performance. So you were also, Ryan, just an enormously successful player. In my research on you, I found out you were the number one ranked junior coming out of high school in America by one of the rankings. You were AJGA Player of the Year. You went to Georgia and played for the entire time there. Two-time All-American, All SEC captain, U.S. Palmer Cup. Just really cool. So part of what I love doing in these podcasts, my phrase is forever learning. I want to just personally be in a mode where I'm always feeling like I'm in growth mode, stretching and learning and growing. I want to encourage everybody I work with and I'm around to keep that kind of mindset, both off the course, but even on the course. That everything that happens is an opportunity for growth and development, and not just definitive about who you are as a golfer and all that. So this is a real honor to just kind of come at this conversation with as both the coach and the player. And I know you're playing very high level right now. I think you had a real high finish in an amateur event recently. So tell us just a little bit about just kind of a brief background on how you got involved in golf. You were telling me a little bit about the backstory before we talked a little bit earlier, and I know you grew up in an athletic family. Your older brother, a very well-known quarterback in Oklahoma's history as well. So give us just a little bit about how you got started and what made you really fall in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the intro, and it is interesting when I think back to my own life and golf, and for one, it just always proves to me that we're not in control of our life and our plans, and we can have all these great plans, and it is great to have a plan. Don't get me wrong, but you got to be able to adapt and adjust along the way, and that's what I feel like I've done over my life. In particular when it comes to this crazy game of golf. And yeah, I mean, growing up, I grew up in my dad was, let's start with my dad. He was a high school football coach, one of the better high school football coaches in the state of Georgia. Very, very winning coach, but forget about the wins and the losses. He understood what it took to execute great plan. He understood how to get the most out of his kids. We were at a smaller school, double A school, which back then there was only 4 classifications. So we probably only had 50 to 60 guys on a team, but he always got the most out of his teams. And that's one of the things that I always try and mimic from my dad. We've had some success here at Oklahoma with teams that weren't super talented as well. And I always, credit my dad. And for me, just growing up in the locker room, I grew up in a football locker room. I didn't really grow up in some, golf locker room. We don't really have that because golf is an individual sport and whatnot. But I grew up in a football locker room. And, from a very young age, 2, 3, 4 years old, that's where I spent my days. I helped my dad learn how to build a football field and maintain it and take care of a weight room and the things that you would think in a small town high school football program. That's what I was around. Well, my brother, who was 2 years older than me, any form of athletic success I credit him for because I've always felt the younger sibling. I had many opportunities to compete against somebody that was better than me every day. And he was up until certain points in our careers, depending on the sport, right? But football, we were always butting heads, and I was probably actually a better football player as a young kid than I was a golfer. I loved baseball too. Played a lot of basketball as well, so I kind of played all the sports. And my dad, even though he's a football coach, he played college golf at Mississippi State, and then he actually played a little bit professionally. He and my mom went and ran a golf course down in Florida while my dad was trying to play on the mini tours, but then he got into football coaching, and that's where his life led him, And so because of his background, he obviously allowed me and my brother to be out at the golf course as much as possible. And I've got a 2-year older brother that's beating me every time we go out. So what do I want to do? I want to beat him, right? So there goes the competition, and that's kind of the way my life was. I was always competing with the older guys because of my brother, and that allowed me to become much better mentally. I'm not even going to say physically, but mentally, because I was always competing against these older guys. And, I always had a chip on my shoulder because I was the coach's kid and I'm supposed to be the best in town at every sport that I'm doing. And he demands excellence. So that's kind of what my expectations were. Right. And over the years when I was competing as a young athlete in whatever sport, I definitely wasn't the most gifted, but I always felt like I might have been as tough as anybody out there because I kind of had to be. And that translated into my golf, and as I started going through junior high and high school, again, I wasn't necessarily the most talented guy, but boy, I got a lot out of my golf game. And that was some great moments, and really look back on that and think about how great my childhood was, that my mom and dad were able to provide for us to be able to go travel around and play golf tournaments. Even though we didn't really have very much money, they did anything and everything to give me those opportunities. And we were staying at Motel Sixes and eating, any type of free meal that we could get. And it allowed me to be a big time, golfer recruit, and which allowed for us to get a scholarship. And, one thing led to another. And it's one of the reasons why I'm here at Oklahoma as the head golf coach. There's no doubt about it that my playing career has allowed me to get in front of people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, a lot of people tend to think that the success path is just, a very narrow focused lane. Like if you're going to be a great golfer, that's, it's kind of the what we probably associate with Tiger, that it was from the age of 2. That's just like your whole life. I'm 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 really more drawn and interested in the people that have backgrounds like you're describing, where there's a lot of diversity to it. There's a lot of different sports involved. There's a lot of exposure to different levels. You're being challenged in all kinds of different ways by older people. Ideal situation if you have like what you had. 2 years is probably perfect, right? It's that older brother that just you're close enough. They like beating the tar out of you, but you also are like you want to prove your worth, in that setting. So I love all that. I've heard you mention that growing up the son of a football coach, that you sort of knew that coaching was probably your life down the road. What's something now that you are coaching and you're heading into your 12th season as a head coach, and you were assistant coach at Georgia before that? Like, what's something you really love about not just the game, but about building into the lives of young people? I think you've used that word about your dad before, that he was a builder. And what
Yeah.
is it that you love about building into the lives of young people, and maybe even something you feel like you've actually gotten better at in the last few years in that space?
Well, and I appreciate you using the word growth and building, because that's what I'm still trying to do. We're trying to do with our golf program. We've been really good the last 5, 6 years, but we're still growing and developing our program. And there's a long ways for us to really still maximize our ceiling. I think that Oklahoma was a perfect fit for me when I first got here, because we were not very good at the time. Our facilities were not very good. Our golf program, like from a team standpoint, wasn't very good, and I couldn't probably have chosen a better fit for me, because that's exactly what I needed to go into from a situational standpoint, because I could wrap my arms around. It's no different than my dad, building up his weight room as a young kid
Yeah.
and watching it. That's what I was around. So me coming in and redoing our facility and creating some unbelievable facility that we have now has been a true blessing for me and what I needed at the time. If I would have walked into a program that was kind of already rolling, I don't know. I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't probably understand and appreciate where we've come from. In my office right now, I still have our very first leaderboard of my very first golf event as the University of Oklahoma golf coach. We went to the University of Kansas, and this tournament was probably the worst event I've ever been to in my entire life. And Fortunately, we won, but I don't have it up there because we won. I have it up there because it's a reminder of where we've kind of, come
Oh,
from.
so
And
good.
it's when I think back to it, this place was perfect fit for me because I could go build and I can help grow. And that's what we're trying to do with our kids. When you talk about my mission with each one of our guys and our each one of our teams, yeah, I've got a lot of guys coming back this year, some seniors. They're going to get another year of eligibility, but they know that we're still going to dig down deep and try and help these guys grow as much as possible to help them learn how to become, better, from a character standpoint, growing up more as men, but also just from a golf standpoint, how can we get better?
Yeah.
Because I mean, with our game, when you're 20 years old, unlike other sports where you might actually hit your maximum potential because maybe that's when you run the fastest, jump the highest, or whatever. For us, I mean, our growth, I mean, most of the guys on the PGA Tour see their better success by the time they're 27 to 35 years old. So,
Yep.
fortunately, I have that as a carrot that I'm able to dangle out there with my guys and let them realize that their best golf is yet to be played, and how can we tap into that? My goal is to get them to tap into that quicker than maybe other programs. So when they leave here, they're ready to go. They don't have to go find it somewhere else. We're almost
Yep.
trying to teach them like professionals in a certain way here.
Yeah. Love, man, that is so good. I mean, as somebody who's trying to find new and better ways to help young guys with mental skills, the mental skills and emotional development side of the game. And obviously, I believe there's so much opportunity for development in that, even in the young golfers who the physical and technical and mechanical skills are super advanced. So this is, I feel, a kindredness with you in that space. So I want to push on that even a little bit more. This is very fascinating to me. I heard you say in a podcast recently that you came out of college as a golfer after a lot of success in college, but you didn't pursue pro golf. And I'm going to quote you right here. So you said, "My mind wasn't where it needed to be to go be a big time player." And then you went on to use words like pitfalls and traps that you fell into, and that your coaching now is partly motivated by your own experience with that and helping leverage that in the lives of the guys that you're working with. So if you're okay with it, could you tell me a little bit more about the pitfalls and traps? Like what would fall into that bucket for you that happened in your own life that you feel like is really an opportunity for you to make a change in these guys?
Yeah, and you see me kind of wiggling around. This is when it starts getting a little uncomfortable, right? Now it's when you start breaking down your own life. And I appreciate that because the older that I've gotten, the more I've been able to talk more openly about who I am, who I was as a golfer. A lot of people sit back and go, "Why aren't you playing on the PGA Tour?" Because you had the pedigree, you've had the successes. My willpower is super strong. I've got the short game to be able to produce. But going back into the history of my career, my last year and a half of college golf, again, I'm going to kind of go back into my father. He was my quote unquote my golf coach, and he and I, because we're father son, we butted heads quite a bit too,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Something that you probably see in a lot of youth athletics and whatnot. And he'd tell you the same thing. We fought hard. I mean, we worked together. We did a lot of great things together. But as I've gotten older, I realized that I needed more growth in certain areas. I didn't know enough. I always just relied me and his relationship always relied on work. We're going to outwork everybody, work, and I would work myself into the dirt. I really would. But a lot of the things I would be working on weren't. It wasn't what I needed to be working on. So over the
Gotcha.
years, I've had to challenge myself on how do I grow as a golfer. How do I learn more about my own golf swing? How do I, create better habits with my own golf swing? So now when I'm coaching, I try and make sure that my guys they actually have a group of people, and I'm not talking about this huge entourage. I'm just talking about a group of people that they genuinely trust because for me, when I was, finishing up my college career and trying to figure out whether or not I was going to turn pro or not, I didn't have a circle of people, because it just had always kind of been myself and my dad. And when things aren't going well with us personality wise, then it wasn't, very cordial at times. And we just should have done a better job working and finding that circle that I could have leaned on, because it does take such a huge um, group of people to make somebody get up and go. Right? I've learned that over the years, and so that's what I try and implement into my guys is, hey, don't just have this guy over here. Let's, besides myself and your swing coach, do we need somebody else that gets brought into the fold here, to be able to be real with you, be candid, pump you up, not necessarily beat you down, but let's have some real talk at times. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say the pitfalls from my own perspective would have been not having enough, um, in my circle, enough
Yeah, support network. Yeah,
support network, me not knowing enough about, I knew a lot about how to play golf. I knew how to get the most out of my game. But unfortunately, when technically you start struggling in certain areas, and I didn't really know maybe how to fix that, I didn't challenge myself enough learning about my own golf swing.
gotcha.
And because of all of that, and I just beat myself into the dirt, for about, year and a half, almost 2 years. And I was about to get married. I got married young, right out of college. My life was heading in a little bit different direction, and I was a little bit burnt out with the game. That's what I've realized over the years. I was burnt out, and college was the first time that I'd actually really played a one sport full time, and I didn't know how to take breaks. I didn't do enough to let my mind go at ease. I felt like I had to be working every single day. And that would be another pitfall that I really try and help coach my guys through, is realizing when there's time to be taken off, you have to take it off. My golf game is not going to get any worse if I take 3 days off. I mean, if you're at a high level, you should be able to pick it up after 2 months and it feel actually pretty good. So, um, that's something that I try and work through my guys, is making sure that the burnout doesn't get on us, because it can. Um, but then once I got back into coaching, and I was around the game full time, and I was able to work on my game, and I fell in love with the game again and what it meant from a passionate standpoint, from a different perspective. I'm trying to help guys. Oh, and by the way, this is kind of helping me. I'm seeing things from a different angle. Um, and I worked on my image of what my golf swing and golf game should be and could be. And that's what kind of flipped the switch for me and made me realize, all right, yeah, I've still got this. I know I can go compete at a high level. And then that's actually when I went and turned pro. I kind of did things a little bit backwards. I turned pro after I started coaching. And then unfortunately, I ran into some injuries, which, that's part of the game. It's part of sports. And I still deal with it. I've been through 3 elbow surgeries in the last, basically 12, 13 years. And I'm just now, in the last 6 to 8 months, getting to the point where I feel comfortable being able to go out and playing on a pretty consistent, regular basis. But I know I just rambled on there, and I hit on a bunch of different areas, but it's been a big pile of mess at times, but also it's been beautiful, in certain ways, and that it's hard for me to want to go play golf if I can't play golf at a big time level. Getting back to what you were saying, and I don't like seeing my name in the middle of a leaderboard because I've never been there. And so in order for me to feel like I'm ready to go compete, I have to know that I'm clicking enough to be able to, even now as a 39-year-old, going and playing at the Sunny Hannah last week, and my name was at the top of the leaderboard, it actually felt really comfortable to me. Um, because I've been trained that way, and that's the way my mind thinks. Now, my body and my game and mentality probably, I mean, it wasn't going to hold up for 4 days. I hadn't even played in a golf tournament in 7 years until the week before. So I get that. I mean, I'm a realist, and I understand it, but it didn't throw me off. I was ready for the moment. I wish my golf game would have been a little bit more ready for the moment. But it's just a wild and crazy game, man, that we choose to play. And I really try and use my experiences to really bring that into my guys, and we have some great conversations to hopefully not have them fall into some of the pitfalls that you talked about that I did.
I love it. I love it. Well, if I could, I'm gonna drill down a little bit on one of the pieces you just said. You said a lot of things I would love to go a lot further with, but I'm over on Hilton Head Island, but a lot of I've actually got a really increasing amount of work right now with top level juniors in Georgia, which is your state. A number of kids who are already committed to D1 schools, 16, 17 years old, 18 years old. And part of what I find encouraging is that a lot of the parents are seeking me out for that sense of bigger support under these kids' lives, and especially in my space with mental coaching and emotional development. But it's also real. It's just about the human being. It's about the fact that the golfer is a human being first, and then a golfer. And what's fun, Ryan, and maybe for me, this isn't very encouraging, is I'm actually developing both a work with the young person side, but I'm also inviting the parents into an actual working directly with me on how they can actually build a better support system for this elite golfer that is, highly ranked and has all those pieces in there. And I'm finding a lot of hunger in parents for that sense of collaboration, that sense of support. Parenting an elite, talented young person is a pretty unique challenge in many ways because their skill is so advanced, but they're still 15, 16, 17 years old as people in many areas of their life. And so we kind of get fooled by their skill that they're way far ahead. But the game, as you know, the game is almost designed to expose your whatever your weaknesses are, not just in your game, but as a person, as a human being. You have to live on the golf course for 99% of the time just with you, and you're not even hitting a ball during a round of golf. So I love the fact that your reflection on that in your own life was that support path that voices into your own development, isn't an area of weakness. That's an area that's strength. That's building strength, because the game really is, that wild of a game. So I'm encouraged by that story, man. I'd like to go a little further into what I call the human side, the human skills that, how do we handle pressure? How do we come back from disappointment? How many times do you ever walk off the 18th green feeling like you got everything out of a round? There's almost always some disappointment in everything we do in golf. And how do we navigate that? How do we come back from that? How do we keep the game from becoming so heavy it crushes our heads, with just the weight of it? So as a college coach, you probably spend more time watching than almost anything, especially when they're in the arena of pressure competition. What would come to mind, Coach, when I would say, what would you say is a common tendency you see in college golfers that maybe shows up under pressure, but doesn't quite show up nearly as much when they're just out relaxed playing golf? So, what are college golfers from a developmental standpoint? What's that sort of getting over the hurdle of real pressure environments that isn't easy, doesn't necessarily come natural to them? Where do those tendencies go that you're trying to work them past if they're like pulling back from the pressure, kind of resisting the moment, stepping into the big shot or the big putt or the big situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unwrap there, but I would say that a common tendency that I find with our guys coming down the stretch, or maybe it's when they're just playing really good. trying to get out of their own way type of mentality. Maybe it's when they're playing terrible and they don't know how to, you know, dig themselves out of that hole. Everything just speeds up so much for most of these guys. Their mind starts working so quickly, and they start walking faster. They start talking faster. Again, it's youth to me, just coming out, inexperience. Um, I'll be honest with you though, as I've gotten back into amateur golf last 2 weeks, I saw myself even as a 39-year-old. It's amazing what pressure does to you.
Yeah.
You hit a poor golf shot, and all of a sudden I'm walking to the ball quicker than I was if I hit a good one.
Yes. Exactly.
Isn't
Yes.
that wild? I mean,
It
it's
is.
like, golly, you've been doing this for your whole life. I mean, just relax. But it's amazing how our minds work. So for me, um, it's it's easy to talk about that stuff in a room setting, in a classroom setting, but to be out on the golf course with a guy and actually feel it and know what they're feeling. I've been there personally too, but actually kind of get that energy off of them. And that's where I feel like some of my best coaching moments can happen is to really get a guy to try and slow down.
Yeah.
I'm
So
I'm
good.
gonna try and start talking to him, but in a way that we're gonna just try and. I mean, certain guys are different. Some guys, yeah, actually firing them up actually gets them that much more,
Yeah.
motivated and ready to go. But for other guys, to slow them down, um, to literally sit there and bark at them and go, "Hey, come back here. I want to show you something," because it gets them off of their little step that they're on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So making them have to adjust a little bit,
Yeah.
I think is good. And so then, and we obviously we can talk about it on the back end, but man, that's a serious tendency for all of us. But in the college world, and you'll see it, you can watch it with scorecards. It's very easy to watch. Somebody gets on a bad run, and you'll see a bogey, a par, a bogey, and all of a sudden you can see those results, and you don't even have to be there. No different than when you see guys get on great momentum runs and go birdie, birdie, birdie. And it's one of the things that we have a lot of opportunities around our program where I mean we do games based off of points and maybe it's getting out of workouts or whatever the case may be of how quickly can you turn off the bad mo, but also even more importantly at times for me because in order to be a big time player you've got to create good momentum that keeps going. I've
Yes.
never been a fan of people saying, well, each shot is independent of its own. I get that mentality. I do. But when you see a PGA Tour player reel off 5 birdies in a row, that is not independence. That is them creating momentum and getting on a
Yeah.
run and having serious confidence. So that last shot is actually it is dictating potentially the next putt. And so that it's a fine line though, cutting off the bad momentum, but being able to capture the good momentum and seeing
Yes.
how long it can run. So it's something that we talk about all the time. We play games with it to try and get our guys to realize sometimes how bad they are in certain areas, but also how good they are in certain areas.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've had the privilege recently of getting to know Colin Morikawa's coach a good bit, who has coached him since he was 8, Rick Sessinghaus. And Rick has done a lot of studies, done 6 months of in-depth study on flow state, what it means to be in the zone. That's what you were just describing, actually, that run. And there actually is a lot of fascinating, even brain neurological science going on around what is happening inside of us when we get on that run. And it really is an alignment of a number of factors that bring in golf, it brings a sort of clarity and calm and thing. Every golfer will say it just felt easy. Like all of a sudden the game felt easy. And when you're feeling easy that all your thoughts are in the right place, your emotions are in the right place, you've got control of your swing and your body. You're not getting pulled into distractions. You see all that, and that's actually an elite skill as well. Like you said, maximizing that momentum is a hugely important. And in the team version of golf that you guys play, wow, you can flip event around like in a heartbeat if you've got guys that have that ability, because that two or three of your guys on the course get that happening at one time, and boom, it's like you went from nothing to everything.
Yeah.
Right? But that's also an elite, like I talk about it like there's some kind of optimal performance place that each golfer sort of uniquely gets into. But the elite skill is knowing how to bring yourself when you're down back to that place, which is what you're sort of doing when you're making them stop their adrenaline rush with the speed of walking. I find this very fascinating, Ryan. I go out and watch junior golfers and college golfers play that I'm working with as often as I can. And I'll notice the same tendency you just described, that when they get on a run, they walk faster because it's like they can't wait to hit the next shot. But when they get a bad shot, they also tend to walk faster, and it's almost like they want to get a good shot after the bad one so quick to get the bad one out of there. It's like, if I can go fix that, then I don't have to worry about it. Which, as a coach, sometimes that works, but a lot of times that I'm going to go fix the shot I just made means now we're tying things together in a pretty rough way. So
Yeah, and
so
to kind of piggyback off that, I would say the common tendency with not being able to kind of pace yourself and slowing down is we create more problems, right? That's what we're doing. We're creating a tailspin that we can't get out of. And so I would say another tendency would be that even at an elite level in college golf, amateur golf, we try and do too much to get back on track
yes,
instead
I
of
agree.
ultimately kind of just taking our medicine, realizing, okay, whatever, maybe bogey's going to be what I make here, and then almost hitting that restart button on that next tee box, which comes from great preparation, which comes from a great pre-shot routine, which comes from
Yeah.
everything that you work on, being able to flip that switch and again turn that momentum back in the other direction,
So good. Yeah.
mentally. So
Absolutely so good. Yeah, I don't I like to talk to golfers about golf a little bit like playing cards or something. Like if you're in Vegas, part of the reason the house never loses in the end is because the house is going to suck you into eventually doing something that is going to come back to haunt you. And I haven't met an elite young golfer yet that I don't think has control freak tendencies and perfectionistic tendencies. That's partly how they got so good. But golf is always inviting you when things are spinning sideways to use your control to take control of the situation, which is almost always counterproductive in golf. It might work in football if you can blast through the dude and get to the quarterback.
yeah,
But in golf, that sort of sense of wrap your hands tighter around this game as opposed to taking the reality of what is happening right now as the moment I need to work on, and not fix my score as quick as I can or salvage something. That is the elite, to me. That's elite mental skill of knowing when to exert control and when to back off of just your own sense of holding tight to your game in that moment. Yeah.
no doubt, no doubt.
So I could talk about these topics with you all day. There's no end to my curiosity. So I'm gonna pull back a little bit and go into what I do with everybody called the back nine. The Masters doesn't begin till the back nine on Sundays. So I'll throw 9 questions at you. I've really kind of designed these for what I was wanting to ask you. But the whole difference here is you can just give quick, rapid responses, whatever comes to mind. You can elaborate a little bit on it if you want, but you don't have to. It's totally up to you. So, you're the dad of 2 girls. I know Addie is the oldest, and Harper. I know Harper's 8. I'm not. How old is Addie?
Yeah, Addie's 12. Harper just turned 9. Yeah.
Just turned 9. Okay. First question on back 9. Favorite thing about being a dad at this stage of your daughter's development?
Oh, golly. Right now, as a 12 and a 9-year-old, I love how they work together now with our family. Yeah, because there's 3.5 years difference in them, so it's a little bit different than me and my brother, right? So at an early age, you could really see an age gap separation. But now Harper is turned into a big girl, and to watch her and Addie kind of work together, that to me has been fun.
Love that. I have 2 boys and they're 3 years apart, and I remember when the 3 years started shrinking down to a lot less, right? That's
Yep.
so much fun. All right. Second question. One fun thing about your team's intense rivalry with Oklahoma State and Coach Alan Bratton.
One fun thing, man.
Beating them?
Well, I mean, that's stating the obvious. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if I could come up with one thing. I mean, talking about it though, Allen and those guys, their history has allowed us to get that much better because no different than my brother, dragging me along. Um, when I got here, I never wanted to be those guys. So we've always tried to be maybe even opposite and different than them, but our end goal is still the same, and that's to beat them and to create something unique and different than what they have. But I appreciate and respect everything that they do because um, the state of Oklahoma having 2 good golf programs is pretty incredible
Crazy.
when you
Yeah.
think about it. Yeah,
Crazy.
we're a very small state. We only have 4 million people living in the state of
Yeah.
Oklahoma, and
Crazy.
there's twice as many people live in the Dallas area. And it's just been it's fun. He probably wouldn't say it right now, maybe as much, but I've enjoyed that ride of catching up, and our goal is to eclipse everybody from a programming standpoint. And they've got a long line of history, but we do too.
Yeah.
Our teams in the '80s were phenomenal, phenomenal, and that's been my job, is to get back to that point. So anyway, that's I don't really have one thing. I mean,
Well,
they
you went right
they want to beat us, we want to beat them. That's just the way it goes.
you went right after what I thought you might. I thought you might go to just the competitive, how much of an advantage it is when you have a competitive rival that as a coach, it allows you to always keep dangling that carrot in front of your guys, right?
I mean,
There's
I
you
mean, I want to throw this out there at you. I mean, just think about the Big 12 conference. I mean, I think we arguably have the best conference in the country. We only have 10 teams. So when you kind of break that
crazy.
down, it's really impressive. And in the last 5 years, I can speak. I think that with us and Oklahoma State and the University of Texas, I think that we might be the 3 potentially. You could argue that we've had some of the best successes, and that's from the same conference, which we all keep pulling each other. To keep
So amazing.
continuing to get better and better and better. So I hope that we're doing that for them, and I think we are, because they don't want to lose to us, right? So competition ultimately still wins out, right? And that's what our competitive market's doing out here in the Big 12 conference for sure.
Well, that's as fun as it gets right there. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. All right. Third question. One favorite memory from your 2017 national championship run? What's something that there might be 100, but what's something that comes to mind when I ask?
Well, the first thing that popped in my head was it was a famous, or it was a pop song at the time. It's called Despacito. I don't know if you remember that. But anytime we hopped in the van, whenever that song pops on now, that's all I do is think about that team, because that team loved that song and we played it a million times. So thinking of, we're in the van a lot with these guys, driving them. So when I think of, it's not necessarily about the winning piece or some type of great putt or shot. I mean, I think of Despacito. uh, But
What a cool association, though. I
yeah,
love that.
I mean, outside of some type of nostalgic, music or something like that, that group was such a clear defining moment for what we try and do
Mm.
here from a putting in the mindset that we are legit grinders. Um, that's what I want our program to be remembered for. And that team, we had 5 guys playing that week that grinded every single shot out and did so many phenomenal things that week. But they grinded it out.
Well, coach, it's a feather in your cap when you describe your own game as being I get everything out of my game that I can, and then you develop a team that gets a national championship getting everything out of their games that they can. So very, very cool. Number four, this I don't necessarily mean this to go super deep. Some people feel like this is a pretty emotional question, but I love asking this because I believe young people are really, I think God created us to have value and all of that spoken back into our lives. Like we're made in God's image, I believe, but I think the way we understand that is other people begin to help us see that. And I'm curious for you about somebody that would come to mind. Could be your dad, could be your brother, could be another relative, or could be outside the family, but somebody who saw value and potential in you as a kid. It could be a coach,
Wow.
and they spoke it into your awareness. Like you begin to actually think about yourself as potential possibility and value.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, as a young kid, I would probably lean on my brother uh, because he definitely saw value in who I was and what I was and what I could be for sure. As an older person, I would say my wife. I know that can be an answer for a lot of people, but she has created a lot more interesting value for me because she's changed me in so many ways that
Mm,
she saw what I could be outside of what golf was, and
wow.
so that she's definitely she would be that person kind of a little bit later in life.
Wow. I could, you just called my wife out right there, man. That is exactly right. I always love saying, man, I love meeting fellow members of the quote, we married way outside of our league
For sure.
club.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
All right, question number 5. You got 2 guys, I think, in the upcoming USAM at Brandon Dunes. Is that right? You have,
We
or
got we
just,
have, we have 6 guys going out.
do you really?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
got let me go through my list here. We've got Quade Cummins, Logan McAllister, Patrick Welch, Riley Casey, Jonathan Brightwell, and
Of
Thomas
course,
Johnson.
me. All right.
And Garrett Reban, who's one of our better players, he actually broke his hand about a month or so ago, and he's not going to be out there. Otherwise, we'd have 7 guys. So yeah, we're going to have 6 guys out there.
Wow. Okay. I think I saw Quade and Logan listed as a list of Oklahoma connected people. Maybe it was in-state people or something. Could be. So thanks for the correction. But so I know you're heading out there. So what's something you're really looking forward to about being out at that event? Man, now with that many guys, wow.
Yeah, well, I'm actually caddying for Logan, and I'm looking forward. We haven't been able to do anything during Corona with our guys other than hop on a Zoom meeting like this. And so, as a coach, it's kind of living with not very much plan for your team has been hard. And that's why I'm really looking forward to our guys getting back here on campus. Whether we play or not, we're going to have a plan of trying to figure out how to grow and get better and do some great things this fall time. But I'm just looking forward to being around my guy. To be honest with you, I mean, obviously, I hope the golf goes well, but I'm looking forward to really being around Logan and being able to try and if I can help him out in any way, then that's what I want to do. And making him slow down a little bit, he starts getting that motor running pretty quick, like what we were talking about earlier. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to really be around my other guys because they're quarantining kind of everybody, and you have to stay in your little bubble. And So I'm not going to be hanging out with very many of my other guys, and I'm not going to be able to really go out and watch them at all. So it'll just kind of be me and Logan doing our thing.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, that'll be a blast, and that'll probably be a little weird at the same time, having knowing you got all your guys there and you can't see them, you can't watch them. Your skin's gonna be crawling,
Yeah,
man.
that's why live scoring is a good thing, though.
That's right. That's right. All right, number six. One good piece of advice on the mental side of golf that you got when you were coming up as a player, or maybe in college.
Yeah, from the mental side of things, it's kind of hard for me not to talk about what we were hitting on earlier, and that is um, mentally being tough enough to understand what it means to um, when things are going bad. How can you figure out how to still become a good player
Yeah.
when things
Wow.
are going bad? And that's more of a practice. I don't know if that's necessarily something I was ever, people, harped on me about, or it's just something that you have to learn to a
Yeah.
certain extent too. Is I mean, let's be real. An elite golfer, everybody's good golf's pretty good. It's really all a matter of how bad is your bad golf, and if your bad golf is still pretty good, then that puts you, a notch above maybe everybody else. So, from my standpoint, that would be the number one thing when I'm thinking about passing on some advice is whenever things are not going well, how can you have fun enjoying getting everything out of crappy golf?
Man, wow.
you know,
Man, oh man, preach, man. Come on. That is wow.
yeah, that's
Ooh.
that's ultimately what makes. I mean, there's nothing more gratifying than not having your stuff and still being able to go and produce something phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's interesting. I actually I one of my markers for progress with a guy that I'm working with is when he'll hit me up after a round in an event, and I know by the scorecard I'm looking at online, he didn't have a great day. And the first thing he says to me is two specific things that he knows he did that kept that score from being what it could have been. And it becomes a source of pride that I had my C game and my C game was better than it used to be.
Yeah,
Like,
and that sense of pride is exactly probably what defines that grittiness. Well, I mean, let's call it what it is. And I'll give you a quick example. I mean, just this past week up at that Sunny Hannah Amateur, the very first round, I am putting out of my mind. I'm leading the golf term. I shoot 5 under, 65, low round by a couple shots. Phenomenal, right? Well, the next day I go out and I'm terrible. I mean, I'm 4 over through 7 holes, 4 over through 7,
who
and
took over my body, man?
yeah,
Come on.
yeah. I mean, just terrible. But I don't. I'll be honest with you. For me personally, I don't remember the 65 nearly as much as I do the next day when I am 4 over, got no golf game, and before you know it, you look up and I end up shooting 2 over par, which was a nice gritty. No. I'm sorry. No, I got it all the way back to even par that second round. So I go from 4 over all the way back to even par. Right.
Wow.
That to me is something that is way more memorable than actually the 65. I mean, it just
Yeah.
is.
Well,
So
I think, yeah,
and
I'm
again,
with
that's
you.
that's my mindset. Some people are not, built that way. They're going to only be thinking about the 65 and how cool that was. And for me, it's like, whatever. I was 4 over. My days were running together, but I was 4 over through 7 holes, and I get it back to even par by the time I get done.
Well, that's inspiring, man. I love that. So let me jump off of that because I could keep pushing on that topic with you for a while. Number seven, we'll go back to the Notre Dame thing. So if Ryan Hybel had a Mount Rushmore of Notre Dame sports, four people, coaches or players, favorites in Notre Dame history, Who would be on your Mount Rushmore? What faces would you put up there? You said Rocket Ishmael
Yeah, Rocket would
already,
be
I
up there for
think.
sure, and Lou Holtz would be up there, and Tim Brown would be up there, and golly, who'd be my last one? Who's your favorite?
Well, I'm a lot older than you, my man, and
Yeah, I know, but I'm not as privy to the early history of Notre Dame football.
so it wouldn't even be because of the Notre Dame, but Joe Montana would be
So,
in that space just because of who he became.
yeah, and again, that was before my time, so it's hard for me to put him there. I'm thinking about when I was like a legit Notre Dame
Yeah,
fan. How
yeah.
about Ricky Waters?
Ooh, there you go. My
Yeah,
goodness,
yeah, Ricky
good one.
Waters.
Going into deep into the running back pool.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. All right, number 8. What are your favorite golf shots you've had in a big, meaningful situation? I always push on my golfers with how quickly you remember the bad shots. And I'm always saying, I'm actually a big believer in emotionally embedding your really good shots after rounds, and then trying to turn the really bad shots into something you detach the emotion from, and you think about it as more of an objective piece of information to learn from. So I've never asked a good golfer yet about a memorable shot in a big situation that I don't think they could come up with a handful. So what would be like one that could be any young, college, pro,
Yeah.
now, last tournament?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. I'll start with the first one that kind of comes to my mind. Right when I started playing professional golf, and I got a sponsor's invite into the at the time it was the Nationwide Tour, which is the Corn Ferry Tour now,
Yep.
in Athens, Georgia, and I'm playing out at Jennings Mill, and I'm finishing over on the ninth hole on Friday night, and I'm basically one outside the cut number, and I know this. And again, this is something that nobody would ever really know because I'm sitting back there towards the middle of the leaderboard, and number 9 is a really difficult par 4, long hole, straightaway, but it's one of the hardest holes out there. And I stripe a driver, and the pin's in the back right on this little knob, and I absolutely roast a 6-iron because I knew my 5-iron probably wasn't going to be able to get in there close enough because it wouldn't be able to stop. And I knew I needed to make a birdie. I knocked in there about 4 feet, made the putt, made the cut on the number, top 25 of that week, which got me into the next week. So again, something that had nothing to do with winning a golf tournament, but the same
Yeah.
emotions are going through,
Oh
the
yeah.
same
Oh
vibes are
yeah.
going through.
Yeah.
Um,
Love it.
I,
Love it.
I
Love it.
would say another really big time golf shot that sticks out in my mind. I hadn't won a really elite junior golf tournament. I mean, I'd won a lot of junior events, but not any what they would call an elite junior event until I was probably 16. And we were playing down at Doral. It was called the Doral Publix Junior. This was back when everybody used to go play at Doral. Now I don't think it's as quite a big of an event anymore, but it was back then. This would have been like 1997 ish. And the Blue Monster playing the 18th hole, and the 18th hole is such a difficult golf hole. And I want to say I only had maybe a couple shot lead, but playing that hole, I mean, a 6 can happen really quick. And again, I hit a good solid drive, and I want to say a 6-iron in, and I hit it exactly like I wanted to, right at this certain flagpole that's sitting there, right into the middle of the green, which basically clinched my win at the time. Big time shot as a junior golfer for sure, and I can remember that.
Wow, that's so cool. That's
Yeah,
so cool,
that's
man.
that's two that I remember. And now team golf, whole different dynamic, right? Different pressures, maybe more pressure in the mind and body when you're playing, for your team. But I can remember at regional championship in Atlanta, Georgia. This would have been like my sophomore year. We're playing at Setting Down Creek, very difficult golf course, and finishing up on the par 4. I think this would have been number 9 coming down the hill, and I needed to make a par in order for us to basically advance. And the funny story isn't really about my golf and how I did it, but Chris Hack, who's my golf coach, I look over to the right of me as I'm kind of getting prepared to hit this shot on the green. He knows that I need to basically hit this on the green and two-putt and get out of there, and we move on to the national championship. And I look over there, and he's basically kneeling down and saying some prayers. and I saw this, and I looked at him. I says, Hacker, I got this. I was like, because it was like a 9-iron or whatever, and I hit it kind of middle of the green, two-putt, and get on out of there. But
That's so
it's
funny.
funny what
My
others
goodness.
are thinking about versus what watching golf is sometimes way more nerve-wracking than actually in the moment.
That's right, man. We're control freaks, man. I'm telling you.
We are, no doubt about it.
So true. I just love so you man, thank you for all that. Those stories are phenomenal. You know, it is astonishing. One of the principles I work with young golfers on a lot is that emotional attachment to a memory like velcros it to your brain, which is important to learn how to actually utilize that in ways that we can improve because what you just proved the point. Like it's years ago you told like your first one about the 6-iron to the back right flag. If I pushed you on it, you could probably tell me insane amount of detail, like what it looked like. You might even know like what the weather was like in that moment, like what the club was like pulling out of the bag, like the things that lock in on those moments. Our memories are just incredible on that. So that was fun. That was fun hearing you tell those, man. Thank you. So last question. So you got a crop of seniors right now. You had seniors last year that are now with the extra year of eligibility or coming back. Tell me one of your seniors that's just the most outgoing, makes people laugh on the team. Like who's somebody that's like on the team. I'm just setting up the question. I want to know who the person is first. So who's the person if there was going to be a like somebody's going to get in front of the team on a trip and everybody's going to laugh? Who's that person most likely to be?
On our team right now, that's not a senior, probably be a guy named Lane Wallace, who is
Okay.
not in the news. He's a little bit more down the leaderboard on our team, but
All
super
right.
funny.
So we'll use Lane, and you can ask him afterwards if you were right about
Okay.
the answer. So if Lane was going to imitate Coach Hybel in front of the other players to make them know that he's not going to say, "Hey, I'm imitating Coach Hybel." He's just going to start talking like you. What would be a word or a phrase that he would start using exaggeratedly so that the players would know he was imitating you?
Oh man.
What do they hear you say
Uh,
all the time?
Probably he'd start out by saying, "Boys, we got to get better." That's probably where he'd
And
start.
everybody's probably on the floor laughing as soon as he says it.
Probably. I don't know. These guys, they're talking behind my back. I'm okay with that though. That's part of it.
Oh, imitation's the best form of flattery, man. Love it, love it, love it. You've been so good, man. This was unbelievable gold and insights and wisdom. The way you blended your own upbringing and your own playing career and what you're doing now as a coach and what you're seeing. And my goodness, man, this is so helpful to me. I can't thank you for your time enough. Tell the listeners, can they find you online, or you do? I think I heard you say the other day you're not like a big social media guy, but where would people find you or your program online?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can follow obviously our program. You can find me too. I mean, I'm decent presence on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, we've got our own OU men's golf page on Instagram and on Twitter, and they can obviously check in with us and see our progress and whatnot.
Right.
Same thing with me as well. With it's pretty easy to find. Type in RYAN HYBL and my Instagram and Twitter page. Pretty lit up with nothing but Oklahoma golf stuff. It's is pretty simple. What we're
I
trying to
love it.
do, but yeah, it's been super fun for me to be able to be on here with you, and obviously it's always great to reflect because I probably don't do it enough, to be honest, other than when I get interviewed and asked certain things. And it's been a great run out here at Oklahoma, and we've got a lot of great opportunities in front of us to just keep on getting better.
I love it, man. Hope everything works out at the USAM for your guys. I hope it's a great experience for all of them, and you know, we all hope that we find a way for this season to happen, and I know you do too. So, best of luck to you and all the Sooners going forward. Your time today, super, super, super special. So, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right.